Breaking news. Please stand by for another C2C World News Now current event.
My answer is yes, clearly yes.
The fact that there is a problem in France with Islam is true. Nobody doubts that.
Who tried to storm lorries bound for the UK so that they can claim asylum in Britain. The road to the port often sees illegal immigrants rush in front of trucks and throw projectiles at drivers to slow them down so they can board the vehicles. Well, located there, of course, is the notorious camp known as the Calais Jungle, thought to be Europe's biggest makeshift camp, housing over 10,000 refugees. It's become known worldwide as a symbol of Europe's migrant crisis. What's more, though, it's a major headache, too, for the French government as the clock ticks to the camp's imminent demolition. Assaults on police officers in a Paris suburb, meanwhile, last weekend have raised fears in France that criminal gangs are establishing no-go areas in residential neighbourhoods. But the French authorities deny that's the case.
The authority of the state will be guaranteed. There are no no-go zones, but there are particularly difficult areas, very difficult areas.
And this is adding fuel to the already heated debates over security in France in the run-up to the presidential election next spring. But such an approach hasn't gone down well with police unions. We talked to one of their representatives.
Of course, no-go zones exist. Police don't have regular patrols through those areas. They only go there if they have reinforcements. No-go zones are a taboo subject. To recognize their existence means, in a certain sense, to recognize a failed state. No one wants to do that. If we deny the existence of no-go zones and only offer stopgap measures to protect policemen, we are not dealing with the cause. We are only dealing with the consequences.
Tensions escalated on a housing estate outside Paris on Saturday, leading to 4 police officers being injured in their vehicles, which were set ablaze, as you can see here. One officer remains in a life-threatening condition in hospital, described as between life and death, and his female colleague suffered burns to her face and also hands. This is not the only incident. Last month, a journalist from France's M6 channel had a hostile welcome while trying to film outside a mosque on the outskirts of Paris.
Problème? Ouais, arrête de filmer. C'est bon, c'est bon. Vous laissez bosser, d'accord? Vous laissez bosser.
The incident, though, didn't gain much sympathy from the local mayor. He claimed that the journalist was a sensationalist and his actions a provocation. We spoke to French journalist Laurent Auberton, who says that no-go zones are increasing in France, in which residents fear for their safety.
There are 750 so-called sensible zones in France, comprising 7% of the French population. People who live there are mostly young, many from migrant backgrounds. Unemployment is very high and so is criminality. These are often territories outside big cities, but recently similar zones have started to emerge around mid-size and even small cities. These places have a very bad reputation, particularly due to drug trafficking. For instance, locals set fire to waste bins near public buildings and then attacked the firefighters who arrived to extinguish them. Then the police arrived to rescue the firefighters, and then you have some sort of urban war. This is the reality of these places, which is being greatly underestimated in the media.
Welcome back. Now, France has a problem with Islam, and that's a direct quote from President Hollande, which stands in striking contrast to what he usually says in public.
Can Islam learn to live alongside secularism, just as Catholicism, Protestantism and Judaism did before it? Can it accept the separation of faith and law, which is the founding principle of secularism? My answer is yes, clearly yes.
The fact that there is a problem in France with Islam is true. Nobody doubts that.
Now, those last words have been printed in a newly released book called A President Shouldn't Say That. The 600-page publication is based on 61 private conversations Hollande held with two respected French journalists from the Le Monde newspaper. They took place throughout the time he has been head of state. We spoke to one of the authors.
Islam is a very delicate subject in France. Dealing with it is like dealing with nitroglycerin, which can explode in your face at any moment. So when politicians talk about Islam, this means it's been agreed, well measured, considered to be politically correct. And this doesn't correspond much with what they really think. We tried and we succeeded to persuade the president to give us his honest opinion about Islam. It might shock you, but at least he spoke honestly.
Now, his honesty in the book's quotes have indeed shocked many people. For example, when he said this.
The veiled woman of today will become France's Marianne of tomorrow.
And this caused quite a reaction online. A lot of internet users, from politicians to ordinary people, have expressed their frustration at Hollande's words. While some of them claim the symbol of France would never be veiled, others accuse the president of turning his back on French culture. And it seems his words offended not only these people, but Muslims as well.
This woman will prefer freedom to slavery, that the veil can be a form of protection for her, but that tomorrow she won't need it to feel reassurance about her presence in society.
Now, some French Muslims said it sounds like the veil is a sign of alienation for François Hollande. Others suggest veiled women are clearly not French at all, according to the president. While François Hollande has also been quite frank about migration.
I think there are too many arrivals, immigrants who shouldn't be there. We teach them to speak French, and then another group arrives and we have to start all over again. It never stops, so at some point it has to stop.
The book is scandalous because it contains several, in fact many statements Hollande made that do not correspond with his rhetoric in official statements or in interviews that are formatted, checked and red-penciled. Politicians can no longer hide behind political language. This is the time to talk to your citizens. People, and not only the French, but all over the world, want their leaders to tell the truth.
However, this truth may cost the head of state dearly, and critical headlines suggest the book could become political suicide for Hollande just 6 months before the presidential elections. Well, we spoke to Patricia Chanon, who is a member of the National Front Party.
The political establishment is very afraid of the people. They try to sanitize their language and they sugarcoat reality in order to, when they talk to them, because they are very afraid how the people are going to react. And when you are not afraid of the people, we are called populists. I think the consequences of this book are going to be very large, and we've been seeing it in the French media. He has put the whole magistracy against him, the judges. He said in the book that the judges of France are all cowards. So he had to write an apology letter, and it was a whole big kerfuffle. The people of his own party, of his own government, they are saying, oh my gosh, it's going to be really hard for this guy to be running for another presidency. Other people are saying, oh, I don't think I want to really be part of his campaign team.
This has been a C2C World News Now current event. Stay safe, everyone.